Today I just wanted to do a little tutorial going over how to weather your Indiana Jones hats, and I'm going to be doing this specifically with Fuller's Earth. Fuller's Earth is like just a powder. It's used in film a lot for weathering all kinds of props and stuff. Today I'm going to be demonstrating this on two hats. One, this clean Raiders hat is going to be weathered. We're going to do up a Cairo truck chase style weathering on it. I'm more partial to truck chase weathering over Cairo, which is pretty much the same thing. It's just got like extra dirt on it as well. And then we're also going to do this crystal skull hat. It's a completely different technique sort of for the kind of weathering I'm going to do on this. It's much more subtle than what the Raiders is going to be. The only things you will need to do this is your hat brush, some paint brushes, and the Fuller's Earth, and then just a little container for the Fuller's Earth. I get my Fuller's Earth from a shop on Etsy called Trooper Bay. They send it in these little packets, and you get like a dark brown, a gray, and then a light kind of sand color. For the Raiders hat, I'm only going to be using the kind of lighter sand color. I like to empty it into a little bowl or container first, and not even a whole lot, because a little goes a long way. Also, when you get started and you got everything set up and you're ready to go, make sure that you have your reference photos ready. Here I have a truck chase photo pulled up. Look up other angles of that scene so you could get the sides and stuff, and make sure you've got your reference photos ready. You might, in your mind's eye visualize that dusted dirt that's around the top and bottom of the ribbon, but there's some nuance to it, and if we're doing it now, we might as well try to make it as screen accurate as possible. I usually just get like the tip of the brush in the Fuller's Earth and just a little bit on there. Not a whole lot. And you really just kind of paint it on. And it'll kind of crumble off of the brush, so the dirt is primarily above and below the ribbon and not so much on the ribbon. If you have any like that just kind of crumbles down and falls onto the ribbon, you could just blow it off. And it blows off pretty easily. It really kind of settles in more as you brush it in with the bristles. And sometimes when I'm doing like a Cairo or a Raiders, I'll kind of start with a thin line all the way around, and then once I get that thin line all the way around, I'll go back in and look at my reference photos and add any like parts where it goes up, or so I do almost a fairly uniform line all the way around. It doesn't have to be uniform because we're trying to replicate natural, what's meant to be natural weathering here. So, don't freak out if you do something that you didn't intend. I highly recommend Fuller's Earth over dirt. I've done Indy cosplay since I was 15, and I've used really fine, powdery dirt from outside before. It just doesn't stay on the way the Fuller's Earth does. I noticed with natural dirt, it almost comes off really easy. Like, a felt hat is something where, like, if you want to keep it pristine and clean, it's going to get dirty. Like, you'll notice that with anything. It don't even have to be your hat. It could be anything. It's gonna get dirty. But if you want something to get dirty and stay dirty, it's almost like it just purges itself of any messiness. It pretty much stays put, but also it's not hard to clean off if you change your mind. Or if you make a mistake. You know what? Just for the hell of it, oh no, we made a mistake there. What are we gonna do? Just get your hat brush and just work at it with your hat brush. You can see it's already just about disappeared, so don't freak out if something like that happens. It's good to have like some music or an audio book or something. That's what we've done. That's what we're doing. I am going to finish going all the way around the ribbon and also around the bottom. and I'll meet back up with you when that's done. Right here you can see we've made it all the way around the crown, top and bottom, because there's a lot more to do. Now the work's really getting started, so I'm gonna go back to my reference photos. It's not really showing up because there's glare, but I could see about on the side dent here, about down in this area here, there's a part where that weathering goes, it starts to come up a little bit. So I'm just gonna bring that up. Again, you know, lots of going back and looking at your references. If you want to print them out, then you can do that. And right now I'm using this reference mostly for the front. And again, I'm going more for truck chase, so I'm using, you know, as many truck chase photos as I can find. There. You can see what I'm talking about, that kind of going, that just little peak right there. I could see that on his brim, there's just a spot. So I'll actually get a pretty good dab, and just, it's kind of hard because and I'll put that spot on there. Now a lot of this, you know, that really stands out. That stands out like a sore thumb. We're gonna fix that, but you know, right now we're just adding the details, and we'll get into the minutia a little bit later. I can also see in my reference photo that on the edge of the brim right here, there's some dust, so I'll do that. Before I switch to any more reference photos, the thing that's different about the truck chase from the Cairo is the Cairo, the dirt weathering is mostly just around, you know, the ribbon here. You can see that the dirt in this truck chase extends pretty far down the brim, so I'm just gonna look at that and see the pattern in which it's going down the brim and try to replicate that as much as I can. And on the left side, I'm just kind of throwing it on pretty sloppy here. Looking at this, you're probably like, oh my god, what are you doing to this hat? And you know, I agree, it looks wild, but we're gonna be taking most of this off soon, and we're gonna try to leave it much more subtle looking. But right now we're just applying. Now I've got another reference photo here where Harrison is holding this hat behind the scenes. Well, I could see some spots on the back of the hat. It looks like we've got a spot towards the back on the left side, about a spot about right here, and then it looks like another spot about right here. So we'll go ahead and add those. They don't look crazy big or anything. Going up here looks a little bigger, like that. For some of the back of the like brim and back of the, you know, dirt around the band, I can't really, you know, make out what's going on. I'll just take some liberties. Sometimes I like to dip my brush in the fuller's earth and then just tap it, so it just kind of sprinkles on here, and then just kind of, and I'll kind of do that all over too. You know, dusted dirt blowing around, and then, you know, what I sprinkled on there. And again, I realize this looks really wild, and like you don't see that like in the film at all, but again, most of this is gonna be taken away, and it'll leave a very, even when you brush it almost like completely off, it'll leave an all over sort of dirty look. Because one of the big things you want to do is a lot of blending. If you have very, very clean felt all over and just some dirt around the ribbon, it's gonna look really weird and very unnatural. Get the entire hat dirty, brush away what we don't really want, keep what we do want more visible, and blend it. Now, another thing with the Raiders hat and the Cairo hat is he's got some very distinct sweat marks on the right side of the ribbon, kind of these arches, and there's 3 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to get a little bit, just kind of draw that onto there. And I'll do 2 more of those. And there it is. So now we're left with something like this. And, you know, if it's your first time or whatever, you might be tempted to be like, okay, I got my hat weathered. Like, no, we are far from done. And we are going to brush off most of this. I'm going to start with the stuff that I really don't want to see, and that's like what I put in the side dents. So, I'm going to start brushing that. Don't be afraid to like pop out the felt if you need to. There's nothing wrong with that. See, almost completely gone, but there's still some, you know, subtle weathering there. If you're brushing and you feel like you got too aggressive with it and you brush off like stuff down here that you don't want brushed off, just go over it again. It's not a big deal. So now like these, you know, those spots were visible in the photo, but you know, in actuality this is way too vivid, so do a decent amount of brushing on those, but I don't want to take them off because now we're just trying to kind of blend everything. And in some cases you might want to go a little overboard with your blending, because in photos and on camera a lot of this is going to show up a lot more than what you'd expect. Weathered hats before and thought I've had it, you know, good where I've wanted it and not too vibrant, and then I've gone and taken like photos of the hat just to kind of get a look at it, and it is much more, you know, stuff that I couldn't even see in person with my own eyes was showing up pretty vividly. Those 2 spots still visible, but much more subtle. That's what we're going to do on like the brim as well. And actually I'm going to do that all the way around on all the weathering we put on there. But do beware though, because I notice it is harder to get off of the ribbon than it is the felt. This is kind of the key here of making it look its best, is blending. See, and now we're starting to look much better. Actually, even now, looking at it in person with my own eyes versus what I'm looking at in my screen of my camera, it stands out more in the camera now than it looks like it does in person. Let's give her a test drive. And a lot of times I'll go and just look in a mirror, take pictures. If you take selfie pictures when you're reviewing those photos, flip your damn mirror selfie photos, okay? It'll give you a much better representation of what it actually looks like. Alright, so I went and actually looked in the mirror and checked this out, and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I think I'm gonna stop here with it. I think the thing about this hat is this is a Raven bar hat. And when I do Raiders, and you know, my preferred style of Raiders is Raven bar, which is a much more clean looking hat, so I went a little ham on the blending, but I think, you know, really, if I was gonna weather this hat with the intention of leaving it weathered, I would probably actually go back and bring out some of these highlights. I'd also just brush this completely clean because I do like a good Raven bar look. Also, we were gonna do Crystal Skull, so this is really good for not just Crystal Skull, but like any style. So I feel like any Indy hat can benefit from this next method that we're gonna do. Temple of Doom really works well with this method, but I'm gonna add some of this gray. So what I'm going to do here is I'm gonna try to emulate more of the opening warehouse style look. And so I've got a decent amount on my brush and I'm just gonna kind of tap it into those side dents. Again, don't freak out, because I mean, this looks wild, trust me. You know, there is a group of people, I've seen them, that are like highly opposed to using Fuller's Earth on their hat or doing any form of artificial weathering. It's like, I go outside and my hat gets dirty. I go out and do stuff and my hat gets dirty. It's like, you can go outside and do stuff in a weathered hat. We just, you know, some people want like screen accuracy, bruv. And again, I'll go through and just put a dot in the stitches. I'm also going to do this on the top crease as well. I wanted to show this method too because, you know, we might have some non-Raiders folks out there who want to know how to get their non-Raiders hat weathered in that way that looks dirty and dingy, but not, you know, the blatant dust. This doesn't look good. That looks pretty freaking wonky. I don't think anybody would be happy with their Indy hat looking like that. So, to the hat brush. Now this one we're going, you know, about as subtle as we could get. Almost as clean as we can without completely cleaning it. Started doing this method because my Temple of Doom bridge hat, I just kept looking at it compared to the screenshots and I was like, mine looks so clean, but the one in the movie doesn't look dusty, you know? Like, it doesn't look like it's just been caked and covered with dust, but it still looks dirty. We're starting to look pretty good there now. And make sure the light kind of hits it all over. Well, anyways, I hope this tutorial was very helpful to y'all and will help you have some fun weathering your hats and feel more comfortable doing it. I know sometimes just getting started when you want to do this kind of stuff could be intimidating, or, you know, these hats aren't cheap, so, you know, it could be kind of scary to take dust and intentionally dirty up an expensive hat. This is a pretty easy method. You don't need anything crazy for it. I will have a link in the description to the Fuller's Earth. You know, all you need is some old brushes that you don't care about and a hat brush. Maybe buy a different hat brush if you don't want to use your designated one for brushing Fuller's Earth, but that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next Indy video.